X-Pac 12360, featuring weekly news, insider commentary, and interviews with superstars, past and present from the world of pro wrestling.
A new day is dawning for DX.
And now, your host, Sean X-Pac Waltman.
Welcome to X-Pac 12360, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have an incredible guest, old friend of mine, and we're going to be talking to him in just about 2 minutes. But right now I just want to do the obligatory introductions. On the couch, we got Jimbo.
What up, Sean? How you doing?
I'm great. Next to Jimbo, we got little baby Lula, who can't talk. And Denise Salcedo sitting next to Jimbo.
Hey, guys.
And over here at the table with me is TK Trinidad.
What's up?
And on the phone right now is my longtime friend and one of the all-time greats, and just great overall entertainers, and just strictly inside the ring, pure wrestlers that I've ever seen. William Regal joining us on the phone.
Yeah!
Hello.
Hey, man. Thank you for taking the time out today.
Beginning bit, I was listening to that. Oh, you're welcome. And it said, interviews with superstars past and present. Where do I fit in there? Because I'm sort of just gripping on for dear life in between the two.
Yeah, but Steve, and I'm just going to call you Steve because that's what I called you since day one. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, certainly, yes.
I already asked him last night. No, but oh crap!
Do you remember when we first met?
Well, I was just going to say that because I ask people that a lot on the show, and I'm glad you asked me this time. And I'm pretty sure it was in the airport, wasn't it?
No.
No? I thought it was in the airport when WCW guys...
The first time we met was in a hotel in Germany. I was there with WCW, so this would...
Hello?
And you were there with the WWE, and we ended up we were all going to the gym at different times, but we passed each other, and you'd not long had a match with Bret Hart I'd seen it on Raw. Said I'd really enjoyed the match, and that was the first time we met, and I forget where in Germany, but it was in a hotel.
I thought it was we were passing each other in the airport, and I like my first major memory. See, back when we met each other in Germany, like you're talking about, I was probably so messed up. Things were a bit sketchy that period of time for me, but I do remember, like my memory is us all meeting up somewhere, like an airport or something, and I just remember you guys coming up to me, especially you. And talking about the match I had with Bret, and coming from you, Steve, that was a huge compliment, man. And Finley gave me the same compliment that day.
At this time, you were still in WWF,
Yes.
and they were all in WCW.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool for you to see rival company giving you credit.
Because Steve, what I knew of you was from Rip Rogers and Mike Shaw, a.k.a. Norman the Lunatic, a.k.a. Mockin' Singh. That knew you from...
When I knew him, what was he called? Klondike Mike.
Klondike Mike, yeah.
Didn't he become
I met him in
Booger?
1988 in Hamburg, in Germany, at the catch tournament there, and he was there as Klondike Mike, yeah.
And Rip Rogers. And see, we were working for GWF, which was this company. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It was like on... TV out of Dallas.
Yes, I remember reading about it. Yeah.
Well, they had this. I won their light heavyweight tournament, and they had talked about. I don't know if it was Pedicino or somebody talked about you coming in for that, and I remember Mike Shaw going, "He's not a junior heavyweight. Like he's really young, Steve Regal, but he's not a junior heavyweight. He's a big guy."
There was some little things about backwards and forwards with that. I remember at the time, but it never really came to much. But yeah, I can remember that. Well, see, I knew Rip. Rip came over to Germany in 1992 and spent the nearly 7 months with us there. And it sort of, we just ended up sort of being with each other all the time. So that was how I knew Rip, and I knew Mike from the years before. And And that's how I first met Scott, when I first met Scott in 1989 in Bremen.
Right, Scott Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, Scott Hall, yeah. So that was, you'd meet a lot of fellas in that European scene, you know, they'd come over for little bits here, there, and everywhere, or we'd sort of bump into each other different places.
And the Godfather was there too, right?
Yes, but not when I was.
Oh,
I
no.
had met him because, I know I was in Hamburg, and we would go over, because it was great working in those tournaments. You know, you work in the same place for 6 weeks at a time. The only thing that was hard work was, what do you do?
Right.
'Cause you can only go to the gym once. You know, there's like so much you can do, and it was filling time. And so at least once in the tournament, we would drive over to Hanover, because like Dave Taylor and all my friends were there. So I'd go over, and that's where I met Charles. The Godfather was, because this would have been probably 1990.
Yeah.
I went over to see Dave, and he was there then, so I got to meet him. But yeah, no, he was never there. We were never in the same place in Germany.
I don't want to jump ahead too far from the thing, but the Godfather thing with him offering you the ladies and you accepting and walking out of the ring is one of the funniest and greatest things I've ever seen on television.
It's a weird thing, right? I did that for about 5 weeks before they shipped me off to the nut house, and I can't remember hardly any. You know, there's nothing clever about that, or you know, nothing I'm proud of. But it's the one saving grace of that part of my life that I can't remember much about it. So
You're
I've got an unbelievable memory. I don't know why, but I can't remember what happened 10 minutes ago, but I can remember all these things.
Yeah.
In great detail, except for probably it's a bit blurry between like end of 97 and until the end of 98.
I can relate.
And then from 99 onwards, it was all back to normal again. So
I can definitely relate. Speaking of nut houses, you and I went to the same one.
Oh yeah, I believe we did.
Yeah. Shout out to Talbot Recovery Center in the Atlanta area. But you know, since you brought that up, Steve, since you mentioned it, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, except for the fact that you've done amazing, like as far as like people want to call it recovery or however they want to do it, and you kind of did it your own way.
Well, everybody's different, right? And you've got to do whatever you've got to do. I'd had enough. I didn't drink till I was 25. I didn't do anything at all, you know, like it was just not something that I did all the time. I used to be out. I left home when I was 16, and I was in nightclubs every night after work. I lived in a resort area where there was, within a mile walk of my house, there was 52 nightclubs and over 300 bars. And I was in one of them every night, and I never drank, I never did, you know, I just like going out.
Right.
So it was, until I came to America and I sort of started whatever I was doing, and then it ended up doing a bit of this and a bit of that, and then it ended up starting taking a lot of pain pills and a lot of everything else to, you know, and it just sort of, I coped with it for a while, and then like the last few months of 97 and 98 were a complete mess, and then once I'd had enough, I just had enough of it. You know, I'd tried myself to stop a few times in that period of time, and it's like I'd had enough, and I went in there, and I you know, I don't buy into it. You know, I don't shy away from the fact that I've got no faith in anything or any. You know, I don't believe in any of that stuff.
Right.
But I think it's just a matter of you've got to find whatever works for you. And personally for me, it was just stop making excuses, because that's all it is at the end of the day. When you can stop making excuses for yourself, you'll pack it in. And I'd had enough, and I was just like, you know, sometimes you just got to go like that. Stop conning yourself. And I hate to say it, but a lot of these places will give you nothing but excuses as to why you stay the way you do.
Sure.
Well, your mum was this, or your dad was a workaholic, or it's nonsense. You got to just take responsibility for yourself. I don't care what you grew up with. What you know, there's a point where it's just you've got to just go. Stop it. Just behave yourself. You know what I mean? Like, stop wasting away thinking about everything that you've done. Or it's like, you know, I always say, don't You know, and I just don't regret what I've done. It's just, I was told this a very long time ago. If you live in the past, you die every day.
Amen.
And if you've done the kind of stuff where you've got something to, you just eat yourself up with it, which will just cause you to start feeling sorry for yourself, give yourself more excuses, and then just do something else, right? And that's just what it is.
Yeah. Well,
so
people that don't,
is what it is.
People that don't have anything going on in the now time and the present, like are the people that like that keep going back there, and it's such a bad place to go sometimes.
Because I had, I'm lucky. You know, I had a very incredible wife, and I've been married 31 years in November.
Yeah.
And she stuck by me and the family and that. So, and luckily for me, people knew me, give me a lot of extra chances, because a lot of people. It's like when I came to the WWF at the time,
right?
To the first time, I got let go from WCW because I was a mess, and they should have let me go a long time before they did. I mean, I'm not under any illusions. I don't blame any. They did the right thing. Eric was always good to me when I was good, and he looked after me. And when I wasn't, he should have got rid of me.
Yeah.
But I got hired instantly to the WWF, and people there didn't know the trouble. You know, they didn't know about the problems that I had. They figured it out pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you were right. I was given opportunities straight after, because as soon as I left, I went into rehab, and after 10 weeks in there, I got out one day and I messed up, and I was like, that was the last step for me. That was the time when I just went, okay, that's it. Stop it. Just stop making excuses, and that was the end of it. That was it from then onwards. It's never been a thing since. I've been suspended a couple of times, but it certainly wasn't for any of that stuff. And I know you know about it. You can back me up. Nobody's ever seen me like that, or any problems with any prescription drugs or any street drugs or any drinking or anything. It's other stuff. So it was just I'd had enough, and then I got opportunities again. Like as soon as I came, like WWF didn't have to put me in rehab because they didn't do that stuff at the time.
Right.
WWE, they looked after me. They even when like after 10 weeks, the program, the program's like 15 weeks there or something. They said, we'll continue to pay for it, but we're going to let you go. You can come back, and I was told you can come back when you sort your life out.
Right.
And I came out, and straight away, within a few weeks, I got a call off through somebody from Eric Bischoff. I've heard you've straightened yourself out. Do you want a job back here? So I had a lot of chances because I put a lot of work in before that people knew I'd been through a bit of something, and I just got carried on after, and it's been like that ever since, it's just one of those things, right? But that was what it was for me. Just stop making excuses.
Sure.
I can't say that's going to work for everybody, because I had a stable home life. I had always had people around me who, I don't know what it's like to have to. I can't imagine when somebody's not got nothing, and then what else can you do? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like you've got. So I can only speak for me. I'm not one of these people who's going to say you've got to do this or you've got to do that. I don't know.
Well, I remember you telling me back then that, and it might have been the first time you came in, was you're at jeopardy of losing your work visa or your green card or however that went, right?
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I mean, just life was a mess.
Yeah.
And that was what it was, and it is what it is, right? You
Sure.
go through. People ask me now, why did you do all that? And honestly, I was just looking for something that wasn't there.
Yeah,
and you know what that's like. You get everything you want by the time you're in your mid-20s, and then you go,
now what?
Okay, I've got that. Now what?
Yeah.
And being in your mid-20s is like, you want to explore and you want to do this and you want to. It's like. To do, and that just happens to be there, and let's have a go at that for a while. And it is what it is, right? And it takes, sometimes people never get out of it, and sometimes you snap out of it. Some people need a system or a crutch to lean on to get through it, and good for them. If it works for you, whatever works for you, just get yourself through it.
It's just amazing to me, man. It's just amazing to me because most people have to go the way of like going to AA meetings and all of that, and that's what works for them. That's great. I'm so impressed by how you just like said F it, and this is how it's going to be from now on, and that's how it's been. And I'm just like dumbfounded because like back then, Steve, I was I was doing well, but I fell, obviously a couple years later once I left, I fell really hard, and it took me damn near a decade to start pulling myself back up. But at the time I was, it was sad because like I remember you were driving with me at the time.
Yeah.
We were all kind of traveling together, but
being on drugs,
and it's a weird. Sorry, can I just say this? But this was a real great test for me. When I had my big neck operation 2 years ago, just about 2 years ago, I had like 4 discs replaced in my neck, and I woke up from that, and the doctor was there, and he said, "Look, there's no way you can't take pain medication. You're in serious pain for the next several weeks, because it could get on the big neck and all that other stuff."
Hey, Steve.
I took as minimal amount as possible, and I could not watch that stuff. I was like, just get off it. And like after 3 weeks, that was it. I stopped taking all that stuff as well. And it's like that was getting monitored and all that other stuff and whatever else. But it was just, I've got to get off it. I don't like feeling like this anymore. And I was glad because it was a thing going in like, there's no way you're going to get through this without that. And so it was just it was a thing, and that was it. And I was like, there's no excuse, there's no reason to take this stuff. Just get off it. You don't like it.
Absolutely.
And I used to, why was I taking that stuff for that? Especially it was an 18-month period when I was taking ridiculous.
Hey, Steve.
Oh, yeah.
Steve, we're having a little bit of trouble with your signal.
Oh, okay. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Perfect.
Yeah, totally. I'm not sure what happened, but
it's just I don't think very well. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to ask, when you were using, did that affect your performance in the ring, or because you've been wrestling since you were 15, it was just autopilot? You could just go.
Autopilot. It's I don't watch anything from that time period. I don't watch a lot of my stuff anyway. Because I just go, didn't I do that? Well, even the best of stuff that people talk about, I go, yeah, but I should have done that then. Why didn't I do that? So to watch anything from that time period, but I know I got through. There's times when, it'd be an all-day conversation. If there was times when I'd actually, certain periods, especially some that I had with Bill Goldberg, where I know I've been accused of being made. The reason I can remember what happened in that match and exactly that it's not what it's been made out to be is that I had stopped taking anything, which was probably not a smart idea, just to cold turkey or stuff. But I'd stopped purposely for like a good 5 or 6 weeks before that match, and it's one of those things like that I remember, like and going through the getting off the stuff, so I can remember exactly what happened. There's certain times when you try getting through that stuff, and that's the problem, as anybody can tell you. You try stopping it, and you just get violently ill. And so that's it. It is somewhat of an excuse, but you just keep taking it, just because you can't, and it ends up getting worse and whatever else. But I was just on autopilot. I mean, there's a match I had in '97. I'd been in a real bad car wreck the day of.
Hello? Did we lose him?
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Can we fix this? Is it something in the booth? What's going on? Can we stop for a second, please? Is anybody in the booth? The audio is terrible. Is it coming in from? Is that something in the booth? What's going on? Fucking brutal.
Is that better?
Or if there's a landline, that would probably be the best.
Just go towards like somewhere in the outside, I think it's best, or somewhere closer to
What do you need me to do?
Go ahead, Anthony. Tell
If you could make your way towards maybe some sort of window or outside, even if it's not too, if the weather is good. Or,
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just get out, because I'm in this makeshift office that they use for me at Full Sail, but because it's quiet in here. But I'll go and head outside. 1 second, please.
Or just get closer to the outside, yeah. I believe
Okay, thank you.
That should improve
I'll
it.
let you know.
Okay, thank you.
So how are we doing this when we come back? Just say anything or just start talking again? And how are we doing that?
Anthony?
You can acknowledge that we had a brief pause, and then be
Alright.
like, okay, guys, we kicked it back up,
All
you
right.
know,
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
just
Alright.
like a
He was talking
casual.
about his match after his car accident. It was the story he was about to get into.
But I want him to talk about Goldberg.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get back to that.
Yeah. All right. God damn it.
Okay, I'm
Sorry,
outside
Steve.
now.
I'm sorry, man.
Is that any better?
Oh yeah, it's fine. I'm sorry, man.
So you were mentioning this match you had after a horrific car accident you were in.
Oh, okay. So I'd had this. I remember in '97, I'd had this really bad car accident on the day of the show, and I wasn't. And again, that was another time when I was completely and utterly sober. I was coming back from the gym, and I pulled up at the stop sign, and I look in the rearview mirror, and I see a car barreling towards me at ridiculous speed, and he just just hit me from behind. There's a couple of other people in the car, and we flipped. And I had a match that night, and now obviously I must have got some kind of concussion. I don't remember anything until 2 days later, and I heard that I was like walking around incoherently at the show, and then I went out there, and it's one of the few times I did watch the match to find out how did I manage to do a match. Well, you were asking about doing stuff in sort of autopilot, and I had this match, and it was okay, you know, but I can't even remember for 2 days afterwards. So yeah, I think I just got by on being able to do what I can do. Right, you just sort of get a sort of if you half know what you're doing, you can get by a lot of the times, which is not a good thing yet. I think it would have been better if I'd have failed miserably a lot more. People probably would have got me to stop doing what I was doing a lot quicker.
Well, you mentioned the situation with Goldberg. Have you had any contact with him since he's come back to the WWE?
Absolutely not. No. It is the thing. You can believe what you want to believe. I've told this story over and over again. I've written about it. It never changes. My side of it, the only thing that's ever changed on my side of it is the dates. At one time, I thought it had happened a few months after, and I may have put that in my book, that it happened at a certain time of year. The story, because I know exactly what happened. I know what I was told by, I was told by the agent in charge of it exactly what to do, and Bill seems to have forgot this. He was as well, and we went through it, and we did it, and he sort of froze up. He came out. If anybody thinks that I was, please just watch it, and watch it with somebody who knows what submission wrestling.
See,
anything.
I've seen it.
If you think that I'm doing anything but a completely putting him in. I've had a few scuffles in my time, real ones. And I've never tried to put people in like or give them an uppercut. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. If you watch it, it's just me trying to get through. And anyway,
it's obvious when you watch it. When you know what you're watching,
yeah.
Steve, I knew, I could tell that what you said happened is exactly what happened in there just by watching it.
So the agent in charge, Eric came out and he was screaming at us, and I was waiting for the agent to say well, that's what I told him to do. And I looked at him. I said, I'm not going to say, well, he told me, because that's just the way I am, right? And he just buried his head in the paper and didn't say anything. So I've kept that person's name out of this entire 20 years or whatever it is. it's up to that particular agent to, if he wants to tell the world what he did, that would solve all this mystery and all this any problems. But I unfortunately, I'm just one of those people that's not going to say it was him.
Sure.
He knows who it was, and the only problem I have, and this is not because I always liked Bill. I always thought the world of Bill. I always did. So, and I know he said that I'm envious or whatever, and you know me, Sean, very well. Have you ever heard me be envious or jealous of anybody?
Not once in the entire time I've ever known you.
Honestly, I just, it's not in me to be that way. It's not something that I even. Honestly, it's just one. I don't have that. I'm not a competitive person, so I don't care if anybody's. I understand what this business is.
I've never seen you be anything but happy for other people's success in our industry.
Right. So for him to say that, but the thing what bothers me, here's the problem. Me and him know a lot of the same people. Why hasn't he just called me up?
Right.
I have sent messages through people. Look, just tell him to call me. If there's a problem, just talk to me, and we can go through it. Because you've obviously, I get it. You might have forgot what happened, and it's become something else in your head. But or I'd say just tell him. I'll sit and watch it with him if he wants, and he can bring anybody he wants who's somewhat of an authority on what we do, and sit and watch it with us, and then talk into it. Anyway, if it just so I don't have a problem with it at all. It's not even worth thinking about.
Right.
But I know it gets brought up a lot, and people want to make something out of it. But you're asking, did I see him when he came to work this time? To be honest, no, because my work sort of takes me. I'm not really around the main show, so it just happened that we weren't around each other.
Yeah.
WrestleMania this year was the first time that I. Actually, and I saw you there, Sean. It's the first time I was never backstage because there was no reason for me to. And there's that many people backstage and people there. I just went in the family box and watched the show and just left with everybody else. Yeah. And that was, so I have no problem, and I'll never say I've got no problem with Bill apart from the fact that I wish you'd have just called me, because there's no reason. If I've got a problem with somebody, I'm not going to go and talk about it on this show. I'm not going to go and talk about it. I'm not going to write. I'm just going to call them up or wait till I see them and front them up about it.
Yeah, everybody's always trying to stir shit up. I think Jimbo's over here trying to stir that shit up right now.
I do have a question. So you said after rehab, you signed up for a 5-year random drug screening. Did anybody ever ask you for those drugs, like the tests or anything like that, or they just kind of took you at your word? And it's like, okay, he signed up.
They took me at my word. No, I signed up for that. Excuse me a second. I'm outside and there's a group of people walking past. I signed up for that purposely because I thought I'm going to have to prove this to somebody, right? So I was on a call at any time, anywhere I was, that they could call me and say, right, go and take it and tell me where to go. So I just wanted some kind of proof because I knew it was over. It's a weird thing when you just go, it's enough. But I know other people might need some proof.
Yeah,
but
that's
I was never
okay.
asked for any. But I still kept it up myself. I still kept going and I still kept it up myself, and I did it for the full 5 years when I left there, and the records are all there if anybody ever needs to see them. So
well, I can verify at least a couple of years of that.
we traveled together the whole time, right?
That's right.
As soon as I came here, we were traveling together. Yes.
Yeah, we traveled together before you got better and after you got better.
Did you notice a difference in him?
Oh my God, it was just amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know that's a real cliche thing for me to say. It's amazing, but yeah, it's just you can't even believe the difference, man. It was just, and you remember the time, by the way, where after you got better and you were driving with me, and there was this guy, Tommy Black. He was like the writer, and I was smoking a joint in the car, and then they let him go or something, and he told on me. And Jim Ross and Stephanie brought us into the office at TV, and they dressed me down, and I was so ashamed because you were they made me feel so ashamed because you were in the car with me.
I can't remember.
No, you don't.
See, that was one thing. The one thing you never had to worry about with me was that smoking job, because that wasn't.
Right.
Not my thing at all, you know.
Yeah, that was the thing. You were like, that doesn't bother me at all. That's not my deal.
No,
it never was.
I'm no interest in that at all. Never had that. That wasn't nothing at all to do with that.
But
no.
Steve, these days, like, your job, it brings you to a lot of places that are not WWE.
Yes.
And I think that's fantastic. And it's really like, it's brought an awareness. You showing up to all these places really helps these promotions, and it brings an awareness to independent wrestling. I think that's pretty cool, man.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of incredible stuff going on out there, right?
Yeah.
And we know, because we come from different worlds when we were younger. So there's a lot of wrestling out there, and there's a lot of really good wrestling. And then there's people that that you think do really well here, and then there's people that in time would do well here, and then there's people that, people ask me, like, they all want to come and what are you doing? Well, if I was you, this is just my opinion, I'd stay doing what you're doing for the next several years, because you're only going to get better doing it. It's not everybody's cut out to be at a certain young age, or everybody's different, and I enjoy watching all that. As long as there's effort, I love all kinds of wrestling. As long as there's effort involved.
Yeah.
And people ask me for, the usual thing, right? Have you got any advice? And I go, well, a lot of the times I have no advice, because you're doing things that I couldn't do. But a lot of people might think because of the style I do certain. It's only because I couldn't do any of that other stuff. You know what I mean? It was like, so I worked on what I could do. Like, my diving days finished when I was 21. I did a dive over the top. I used to do that dive over, and somebody didn't catch me, and I hit the floor and really dislocated my shoulder badly. And I went, right, that's the end of that. So it was just strictly ground game and doing the physical stuff and trying to make that look as good as possible. And then, the having the big interest in all the entertainment and growing up around a lot of entertaining wrestlers in England, because it was always fantastic. I don't like to term them comedy wrestlers, because they were more than that. They were really, but so when I became a character in WCW, and then from then onwards, whenever I needed it, taking little bits of stuff, and what my only interests in life were British wrestling, and then the British comedy, but a lot of it's from stuff that nobody's seen, because people say, oh, you mean Monty Python? No, this is stuff from the 1950s and 40s and old films and stuff. So it's little facials from here and little bits from there, and then adding my own little twist to it and my own little stupid sense of humor to things. And so it was only, I remember having a conversation, this is weird, with Jeff Hardy about 15 years ago, and I used to think of some of these things, and I'd never seen them. And I said to him, if you stood on the top rope and picked somebody up across your body, you could do somewhat of a moonsault out and land on them. And now I see people doing that on the run, like a Spanish fly in the ring.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Trevor Lee does it all the time.
How have they ever got to this kind of level? I marvel at it, because the thing that changed my life as a wrestler was watching. In 1978, I loved wrestling from being my earliest memories. Every Saturday night, Saturday tea time at 4:00, it was British wrestling was on TV. But in 1978, I saw Mark Rocco against Marty Jones, and that match is on YouTube. And they were they were so far advanced on the stuff that, and so aggressive, and just the moving around with they had this really, and they sort of set a standard for this really technical, aggressive, what became the cruiserweight style. I know Dynamite and Tiger Mask get the credit for that, but if they were doing it 2 years before anybody had ever seen those fellas do it.
Yeah, well,
if you go back and watch Dynamite then, Dynamite was still like a 16-year-old kid doing very traditional British style. He wasn't doing what they were doing, and he would have been influenced from them. And then Tiger Mask came over to England in '79 as Sammy Lee, and he had his style, but then he started working with Rocco a lot, and so they had that you had to step up the aggression, and it sort of went back to Japan, and so. But
Is that why you brought
watch these matches?
Is that why you
And
brought?
I used to,
Is that why you brought
Sorry.
Mark? Is that why you brought Rocco in as Black Tiger because of the stuff they did in England?
yes,
Okay.
yes, that was his number one, his favorite opponent. So it was. Sorry, it wasn't. He was his favorite opponent when he was in England. Obviously, Dynamite was later, but when he was in England, he loved wrestling Rocco, and it just brought out that, they sort of developed this style over it. But I used to watch those two and go, God, I want to be like that. Well, there was another thing to what I'm under no illusion as to why I'm here. I was born at the right time, because I have no ability for this whatsoever, zero. I've had to learn every little bit of it, agonize over learning it. I've got no athletic ability, none at all. I was just a kid that wanted to do this with a great desire, and luckily I found a way in by going to a carnival and getting in that way, because you couldn't get into wrestling. There was no wrestling schools.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of a wrestling school until 10 years after I was already wrestling. So it was like either your dad was in it, or you're an amateur wrestler, which is very, very little amateur wrestling in Britain at all. It's only localised, certainly not where I go. But I wanted to be a wrestler, so I used to go to boxing and judo, and I was worthless at both of them, but it got me somewhat fit and somewhat learning how to take falls and have good footwork with the boxing, and then I started hanging around the carnival and got into the wrestling that way. But I had no ability. I was rotten, but I worked on a little crew where they didn't expect much. They did little shows, so I worked, ridiculous amount of shows a year in the summer season, minimum of 10 shows a week. So for 20 weeks of the year, but working with people who were better than me, slowly but surely. Yeah. And so by the time anybody saw me, the first matches you'll ever see of me, I was 18 on TV in England. I was rotten, but I was a lot better than I was the year before, and it slowly got better and better. So
Is this
I'm
when
under
you were
no
the
illusions
mass
as to
destroyer?
why I'm here, right? Because I worked all the time. I can't do what these fellas can do nowadays. And I always wanted to do like these really. I used to watch that Rocco and people and Finlay and that, and go, God, I wish I could do the stuff they can do. I can't do any of that stuff. All I can do is work on what's good for me, and what I sort of found my niche doing aggressive wrestling, because I can do all the fancy wrestling in the world, because that's what British wrestlers are trained at.
And don't call it chain wrestling.
Don't call it chain wrestling. No,
that sounds like a t-shirt.
I can do all the nice, pretty wrestling in the world, but it's like my thing was to make it look a bit more whatever, and then do the entertainment and all that stuff. So I marvel at all this is a long-winded thing to get back to when I go to these shows now, and I'm watching these fellas do these unbelievable things. I just like, but here's one problem that I see nowadays is, where's it going to keep going? Because there's that much good stuff. It's like at one time, one good match would stand out for 6 months. Now you've forgotten about it 3 days later, because there's another one just as good come along. It's weird, isn't it? There's that much good stuff now. If you watch the world like we do, and you're going, my God, where's it going to keep going? Because there's only so much you can push the human body to do.
Yeah, but that's what we keep thinking.
It's getting that limit now, isn't it?
But
I thought that. Go? I'm not envious of anybody. I wouldn't know where. The only thing I could do was, if I'm looking at it and I go, well, maybe you could try this or try that, but it's like these fellas now and these ladies now, they've got to keep. It's such a high standard, which is incredible, really, that it's come this far. But they've got to keep it up, and they've got to keep trying to. How do you stand out in this day and age? It's difficult, right?
Right. It's like we were sitting there at PWG, and I'm pretty sure I told you when Brian Cage was getting ready to go to the ring, I looked at him. I'm like, if I had to start now, I don't even know if I'd start wrestling. That guy does more stuff, and he's like 270 pounds, solid muscle, and he does more athletic shit than I've ever done or even thought about doing in my entire life. I'm just going, what? So yeah, it's to your point. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like they can top this, but it seems like eventually things always get topped. I don't know how, but I'm pretty sure
they always do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's getting to a point where it's so condensed now that the quality and like the matches and the show, it's just like wow, it seems to be just, you know, it really is like, I mean, the last year, look how many incredible matches there's been. But after a while, you say, okay, list your top 10.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, God, where do you start? You know, and it's just going to get, for the next few years, it's just going to keep on that path, right? But then there's going to be a day where you just can't, you've got to figure something different out. And it's the ones that figure, like, that's what you've got to try and, where do you go from, or what do you do? Do you take it, you can't go back, but can you go back in a certain way of making it a bit different in certain ways and whatever else, you know? It's a mind-numbing thing to try to keep on top of and keep, like, especially like here with NXT, what, you know, everybody says, well, this person should be there. Well, there's only so much room for so many people, and you've got to give them the opportunity to shine. But if you bring too many people in, then not everybody gets a chance, and it's timing a lot of the times. It's bringing the right people at the right time. But like, how do you stand out? It's mind-numbing to me because I wouldn't be here. There's no way I could. It was just that I was lucky to be around at the right time, and nobody expected anything of me when I was younger. And then I slowly got better, and I slowly got better, and But it was working constantly all the time with far better people than me that got me to where I got to. If I was having to work to wrestle people of the same skill level, I'd have never got to where I got. Some people just naturally have great ability, right? You know, and they from day one. But most of us have to learn this, and it's like nowadays. It's unfortunately the people like myself are probably never going to get seen. The people who had the same kind of level as me and the same desire as me probably will never get to where they need to go because there's too much good stuff around, and people expect too much of you.
And the industry is attracting like world-class athletes that it never attracted in the past, and that's the thing that people don't think about too, or as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some, you know, there's that myth that everything's the same here and that, but it's not. It's some people fall into that pattern of doing things, but you have, you know, you can create your own styles and do your own thing. There's always going to be, you know, every company you go to, you've got certain guidelines you have to work towards and whatever else. But I mean, we've got athletes here that are just, you know, we've seen some of them on the show, right? I mean, the incredible athletes like 2 years ago didn't see, you know, weren't doing this, you know what I mean? And now they're doing some really cool stuff, and they're just going to get better and better and better.
Well, Regal, when you're scouting new talent, is it hard to keep an open mind when your colleagues and peers maybe have, and fans even have so many different opinions on styles, wrestling companies, and wrestlers?
I keep a completely open mind, and like I say, I do look at things in a different way, though. Right? I watch stuff. This is one of there's, like I say, I enjoy wrestling from anywhere if there's effort. But when I'm looking at it for this, for NXT or for whatever I'm asked to do, there's two things that go through my mind a lot. Some people can just get over doing anything, you know, they're one in a million, right? Some people can do the exact opposite of what's right and still get over. And there's only two things that really matter at the end of the day. One is keeping the people who are paying you happy, because if they don't have to book you. People seem to forget that. Whoever you work for, that's the most important thing you've got to do, is to keep them happy, because it doesn't matter how good you are, they don't need to book you. The second thing is connecting with your audience. But the first thing, that can change that connecting with your audience, because if they don't like the way you're connecting and they want you to do something else, you've got to change. And if you're not willing to change, then you're not going to fit into that company, right? That's just the way it is. Within the entertainment business, it goes for any other form of entertainment. You can be you can have some of the worst singers in the world selling out arenas every night because they're the chosen ones, and some of the best can't put 100 people in a club somewhere. You've got to do that. The other thing, I know the way that we film stuff, like the guys and for certain things, and then the ladies. This is the way I look at stuff. What will their stuff look like in high definition under slow motion? A lot of people's stuff doesn't look good if you actually watch it close up. I'm just not watching the spectacle. Sometimes I have to turn something in my brain off does their stuff look good enough to hold up under high definition in slow motion? Because what do we love to do at every opportunity is show things in slow-mo, and then you can see through a lot of people's stuff when it's under those conditions. You know, me and Triple H had a conversation about 6 years ago now, when he was first, you know, we were getting together about doing this thing, and he was, you know, thankfully asked me to be a part of it with him. When we were having a conversation,
you're talking about when he was redoing the whole developmental system and turning it from FCW into NXT.
And we've always had the same kind of ideas about stuff to a degree, but this is somewhat the conversation we were talking about. All these incredible dramas that you see on TV at the moment, you know, whatever it was at the time, Boardwalk Empire or whatever else. And there was, you know, the Sopranos and Breaking Bad and all that. And we both were like having a discussion that when you see any of these shows, from the smallest to the biggest of all, not one person ever looks out of place. And that's what we want this to be.
Yeah.
Everybody, not one person needs to ever look out of place if they're to be somewhat a part of the show. And it's that constant finding people and finding what works and what doesn't. And, you know, because are you ever going to get there? Are you ever going to get the perfect everything? Probably not. But that's something, and that's good, because that keeps you occupied and keeps your mind working about how to get there. But that is one of my key things of keeping. It's sometimes it is notoriety that'll get me to note it. But I know everybody's doing anyway. I mean, that's my job, right?
Yep.
So it's. But then there's other people that you go, well, hang on, they're great, but if they came here now, they're not gonna get used at the moment. So are they better off just staying out there? They may not think they are, but in the long run, they'll be better off staying out there and working all these different shows and different people and different styles and whatever else, because I know in 2 years that will make them a far better. Because I know from personal experience, that's what happened to me. Working in different places with different people and whatever else got me to get noticed to come to America in the first place, you know. So, it's a non-stop, you know. But that sometimes you just see somebody and just go, well, that's that. That, you know, they've got whatever it takes, and they may not be the best in the ring. It doesn't matter. It's that connection. Look at the way people react to them. Look at the difference in the way people look at that person to the way they look at that person, whatever it may be. So there's no formula to it. There's never going to be a form. Anybody, I'm sure you're the same, Sean, because me and you sort of have somewhat a lot of the same ideas. Any old wrestler that's telling you that there's formulas to this, have just never done this long enough.
Yeah.
You know, they're really, you know, it's whatever works and whatever you connect with, or you've just got to be willing and open-minded to change. And people are telling you this is the only way it works, and no, it isn't. You know, there's always some people can do the exact opposite of everything that you would think would work, and it works, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
You can't. I don't go in. I go in with a completely open mind to what, you know. It's not like, oh, they've got to be great wrestlers and all that, because it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Even if I don't get it. Wrestlers that I know in the world don't do 5 things.
Yeah.
The people who I really rate as the
right.
best storytellers and that, it's all the in between stuff that they do. Yeah. That's the good stuff that you don't. You know that. So it's, or is it an incredible moveset? Is it just that, you know, that look in your eye? I truly believe that people have figured you out about a third of the way down the ramp.
Yeah.
If they're going to like you or not. If you don't come out there, and some people don't even have to do this. They connect anyway. But as for a regular person, which I am, I'm just a normal person. You've got to make yourself somewhat extraordinary to stand out. In whatever form it may be.
Yeah. Something
if
that
you walk out there and you haven't got that look in your eye, like I'm here to beat somebody, people pick up on it, you know, and they certainly pick up on it on TV, because the first thing that, as you walk through that curtain and that camera's in your face, people can read you, whether they realize it or not, subconsciously, they can read, like, what's going on. Like this lady fella's here to actually fight somebody, and be enough to connect you to them and keep it going, right? There's no set way of doing this. It's worked on many different levels.
Well, I remember like when we were at PWG, you noticed that Flash Webster Morgan, that kid with the motorcycle helmet, like the punk gimmick or however that is.
He's like a mod.
Yeah,
he's a mod. How dare you?
Whatever. I'm sorry. Yeah, but I remember you telling him.
Show, at least not your English subcode.
I apologize. I remember you telling him that people like you, and that's really hard to get people to like somebody right off the bat like that. I remember you noticing that about that kid. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Oh, you hear me?
Not right now. Hello.
Mr. Regal.
Can you hear me?
Is anyone there?
Stand by.
He did have a great showing at PWG Flash.
Yeah.
Webster Morgan.
Yeah.
It was his first time there, and yeah, for people not to really know who he was, to show up and get that
Hello?
reaction.
Hey, there you go. Now you're back.
Okay. Yes. The thing. What did he do differently than everybody else? And great. What did we went out and he sold and sold and sold and sold and fought back with Rick. It wasn't. He wanted to.
We can't hear you, Steve. We can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Flash Morgan Webster.
Yeah, so we were talking about Flash, and it was, he sold, and he fought back, and he had fire in his eyes, and he connected.
Yeah.
Because he did that, and that was basically all he did. But he connected with everybody in a big way that night, and it's like everybody's got a different way of doing it, right? Some people it's a incredible moveset, some people it's being aggressive, some people it's doing whatever it may be. Being entertaining, and it was very noticeable that people, when he walked out, I'm not just watching what's going on in the ring, I'm looking at all the faces of the fans, and it's great to watch that because everybody's so close. I can look in people's eyes and look at the way they're looking at people and going, they look at that, there's something about it, they're connecting with this person somehow, and it's great. It's a great atmosphere to watch all that happening.
There's something that comes off about him that it comes off authentic. It doesn't seem like he's trying to be something he's not. I mean, he has a cool gimmick, the mod gimmick. So I got that right this time. But it's not. It doesn't seem like
when we finish this, you need to go and watch Quadrophenia today.
Okay.
And then you'll know what all that's about.
Okay, I promise. I'll at least brush up on it if I don't watch the whole thing.
Well, do you think that match at PWG should have ended with the headbutt right away to Marty, or are you happy it went on further the way it did?
I'm happy it went on because people, it would have been a shock if it had won it with that. It would have been a great shock, but people wouldn't have had as much time to invest in him personally. If you know what I mean, it would have been a big surprise and a big pop. But watching him actually fight and come back, people were getting more and more into, and he was endearing himself more to people as time went on, in my opinion.
So what would you
But
say? What would you say is the biggest misconception that people may have on the kind of talent that WWE looks for?
Well, I think there's a lot of people still think they want everybody 6'3" and 6'3" and all looking the same, like with certain physiques, and everybody looks and wrestles the same, which is not the case at all. If you go back probably 6 or 7 years and look at the difference in the roster now, of the way everybody, and that's on the main rosters as well. There's lots of different shapes and sizes. There's lots of different skill sets. It's. I think a lot of people don't actually look what's going on, or it's too easy to just make a blanket statement and say, well, this is what everybody does. Well, no. Are you actually watching what we're doing, or are you watching what's going on? I'm not going to get into too deep a detail, and that's other people are going to make their own minds up about what they think, right? So it's not for me to tell them.
This, you know what, Denise's question just now made me think of this, and I've been critical of WWE in the past, and you actually talked to me about this a couple of times, and I was critical of, like, okay, and we're not bringing any names up here, okay, no names being brought up, that, you know, certain wrestlers that WWE passed on and didn't end up bringing in, even though they might have actually initially, you know, told them they were going to give them a developmental deal or something like that, and it just seemed like insane that they would pass up on some of this talent. But there's reasons that, you know, sometimes can't be talked about.
There's a lot of reasons that you can't talk about, but believe me, if you think we haven't gone out there to try to, some people are busy, they're tied up with other people. But if you think that we're not going after the best of the best, then you'd be very foolish to think so. So there's a lot of times, for whatever, and some people just don't want to come here, you know, at this present time because they've got other things that they want to achieve. There's several people out there that look, you know, I know I've got goals set. They're young and I've got goals set. I'd like to go and do this first. Please go and do it. That's what I always tell people. Go and do all that first, because you're only going to be better for it. The more you spend that, you know, the more experience you get. So there's a lot of times when there's people, you think, why they're not here? Well, you think we haven't tried, but we have, and then there's a reason that they can't, and that can come in many, many forms. And it's just the way it is, you know, and unfortunately you've just got to keep your mouth shut and take it and be the bad guy a lot of the times, right?
Sure. Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, you know, if people think these things, but you know, when we were wrestling full time, Steve, like half of the crew that we worked with couldn't pass a physical now, at least.
No, and that's just the way. But that, you know, it's all that. Right? It's no good being, well, back in my day, because it's just different.
It's not.
This job's different, and it's not back, and it's different, and you've got to. You can go, yeah, but this, and yeah, but no, it doesn't matter. Yeah, but it is what it is, and we've just got to make it work. Whatever guidelines you're given, whatever, you know, health, you know, procedures you have to go through, whatever background checks you got to go through, if you don't match up to what is laid down, you can't. That's it. It's not happening. And it's no good going, yeah, but if it doesn't matter. That's what's on the plate. There's no exceptions to that.
Yep.
And it's I don't get into arguing about it. That's something, you know, it's a public company that's sort of, you've got to stick to rules, and if people want to just why waste a second of your time worrying about or moaning about, well, yeah, but they should do this, they should do that. Yes, sure. That's not the way it is.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to bring that up because I was one of the guys that was criticizing here and there for how come things didn't work out with this guy, or how come they're not bringing this guy, and it's kind of not fair, you know, when we don't really know the whole story, and that's I just wanted to bring that up.
The whole point is being, isn't it? You know, you can never worry about things being fair in life, right? It's just the way it is, and it just is what it is, and so that's just all it is, and you just gotta make. There's people that get here, they're here because everything's worked out for them, and then there's people that won't get here because everything didn't. Yeah. And then you make the best of whatever opportunities you get, and you get on with it from there, right? And that's all there is to it.
You recently had a trip to Japan. Is there a difference when you're scouting Japanese talent versus American talent?
Not really, because it's the same principles. When you hear about me going, that's something when you hear about me going to places, a lot of the times it's not looking for people, it's just knowing what's available and knowing who's out there in case. There's a reason that we can pull off a lot of the things that we manage to do in talent development, which is a very small group of people. We pull off these tournaments in literally get them put together, and it's because of all the homework that's gone into it. So just in case, what happens if we get asked for that? What happens if we get asked for that? Yep. You know, there was a week in Japan, like 10 days, where because of the the junior tournament, there was 8 different shows from 8 companies in the Corrigan Hall in a week. There's no, and I had like a bit of free time. There was no better time for me to go and see over 100 different wrestlers, and 30 of them from different countries, just to see them, because I don't think I can get a real read on people till I see them in their environment in front of a live crowd. That's just my personal opinion. I can see people who've got skills on tape, but then it's looking in the people. Back to that stuff. I look in the fans and in their eyes and how they're really connecting, and am I getting a true read on this? Because you don't always get that when you watch a film, and so it's just getting prepared. What happens if the next thing I get asked to do, or not me, but the talent development? Okay, we need an Asian tournament. Well, I've got to know who could actually be a part of that, and like the thing with the UK stuff last year. People were saying, why didn't you use that? Why didn't you use this person? Some of the people weren't available, but then another thing was, you can only feature so many people in any tournament. You can only, you're going to get down to 8 straight away, or whatever it may be, right?
Yep.
But the other fellas, they've all got to be able to carry their bit of it. And sometimes it's a geographical thing. You have to bring people in, as with the Cruiserweight tournament. You have to bring the 205 thing, bring people in from different countries. Well, you're limited on certain countries, but you want to get as many as possible.
Yep.
But if you're going from one place, my thing, and another thing is, I do like wrestlers to look like wrestlers.
Yeah.
And so does Triple H. They should look like they can actually have a fight with somebody, right? So, especially in a tournament, you shouldn't be in a tournament if you don't look like you can beat anybody. Because why would anybody book you in that tournament? That's just my personal way of thinking.
That's
know.
I call these guys cosplayers, Steve. I call them cosplayers because they dress up, they do all this stuff that that they think goes from what they see on TV, but they don't look the part, like you're saying. And I know I don't begrudge people from wanting to be in wrestling, but do the work.
Absolutely not. No, good for them. I mean, hey, anybody who asks, I'll give anybody my time and and help anybody, because you never know what they're going to be.
Yeah.
If they take a little bit of it, and I'm happy to help anybody and give the same advice to anybody. If you can take it, because I was didn't look the part and was rotten when I was a youngster, and then you learn things and you move on, and you either change or you don't. And if you don't, then you're probably not going to go too far. But also, like with the UK guys, I knew, if nothing else, I could tell all them fellas, look, fellas, just go out and knock the hell out of each other, right? Because I know they were all physical fellas that could get stuck into each other and not be frightened of it at the end of the day. Because sometimes things, whatever happens, the match is not going so well, I just start getting stuck into each other, because at least it'll look physical, and that'll cover a lot of things sometimes. But if you've got, it's all, there's no just throwing stuff against the wall. It's sort of, in my twisted logic, it's somewhat thought about and set, and all of us, not me. I mean, I'm just part of a team, and we all sort of have that kind of thing that we're trying to make it look, the product look as it might not be the most spectacular match, but at least it looks like 2 people who are competing, because that's what we seem to forget a lot of the time.
Yeah, but one of the most spectacular...
We're portraying professional fighters.
Right.
And if you're not in that ring looking across to that person across the other side of you, with that look in your eyes, this person can stop me eating tonight. If I don't beat this person, I'm not going to make any money, or I'm not going to move up the card. And if you don't carry yourself like that, because that's, when I hear people say, well, we had a cold match, we've got no story, it winds me up to death. You've always got a story. The story is you've got to beat that person in front of you. Because if you don't, you're not going to eat tonight. It's a very simple... Anything else you get to work with is a bonus.
How do you...
Anything after that is a complete and utter bonus you've got to play with. That is the thing, is I'm here to compete against this person and beat them. And we seem to... That seems to have lost... They seem to be lost on a lot of people. I want to... I use that same thing all the time. I know a fight scene in a movie isn't what it's supposed to be, but I want to buy into it while I'm watching it.
Sure.
Now, you can have entertaining fight scenes, and you can have things that are completely, in our world, we can have things that are completely ridiculous, but you can only do them every now and then. You can't have a full show full of that.
Well, it's like a Jackie Chan fight scene. I mean, there's different kinds of fight scenes.
right?
Yeah.
And my thing with a good wrestling show is she'll be like the circus. You know, if you go to the circus as a child, you love it all. When you grow up and you go with your children, you want to see things that, you know, you see things that you've never seen before. You see incredible feats of athleticism. You see incredible high-flying things that blow your mind. But as a grown-up, at the end of the night, I want to see or think that there's some poor fella going to get eaten by a lion. And if I don't have that bit of belief, I know it's never going to, especially me, because you know it's never going to happen, right? I know because I've worked with a lot of circus people, right? The lions are as tame as pussycats, but I still buy into it if they do it right.
Right.
Like the eye-wire act. These people are professional. They are never, ever going to wobble on that wire. But that's why they throw it in, because you go, oh, and gasp. And
It works.
They've got you for that second. They've got you for that second. And that is something that just creates these moments and make people feel emotion and whatever else it may be.
Yeah.
You've said that you didn't get to your best wrestling until you were 40. So now it's a couple years removed from that. Do you think you can still go now?
No. I'm under no illusions or kid me. So I would say probably 38, 40. And I think, like, as far as where I wanted to get to and as far as everything that I'd always tried to get to, I was probably doing in my last run on ECW and you know, the style of and probably the stuff that I was doing with CM Punk afterwards, and that was this I think it was Raw over the some championship, IC championship. It was the aggression and just me being relaxed. When I went to I'll be the first to admit, when I went to the WWE in 2000, my wrestling wasn't anywhere near what it should have been. And a lot of it was I was trying to fit in. I was trying to be too, because I'd been in a lot of trouble for a couple of years before that. I tried to just fit in, and live events were never a problem to me, but TV, I was trying to do everything, and I felt like I was very robotic. I didn't have my robe, which they didn't want me wearing a robe, which is it's a weird thing. I'm a completely different wrestler when I have my robe, because that's my act. That's the best bit of my act. I used to say that you might as well go home after I take the robe off, because I get all my little stuff in. Live events, I was always comfortable. TV, I was more robotic and not being what I could be.
I really love that
like
stuff.
I just got to the point where I just went, that's it. I'm just going to do me and go back to the way I used to be when I was on my best game, probably like 96 in WCW. I was sort of really at a good peak there, the way I was doing stuff. But I think I got even more aggressive and as far as the style and whatever else, and just the facials and the character and that, when I was about 40. But also my body was going at the time. I had a lot of health issues going back quite a while and different, but I didn't realise how bad my neck was at the time. Because I had no neck pain, but it was affected. Like my arms started to go, and I didn't have strength in my arms. I torn one bicep years ago, and then I tore the other. Nobody knows a lot of this stuff, but it was about that time. I was 39 or 40. I tore my other bicep and my pec, so that's when all my I literally couldn't do anything upper body for that. Not several years after that. So that's when you start looking bad, and then I just hadn't got it sort of got there, but then I realised, this isn't. It's getting harder and harder, and so when they took me out of wrestling, I was pretty much, it's time to go. And I've done a few things on NXT, and they were, if I could do that style of stuff, those long storytelling matches and very, but I was always just a plodder. I just plod. I'm not like nothing special. I got no great ability or anything. I can just do what I do and do it half decently. I could probably get through, I know I could get through stuff now, but why? I'd set out to have, all I wanted was a career in wrestling. I was happy working on a carnival. I thought it was Wonderland, and I thought I didn't want to do anything else but that. Everything else has been a bonus after that. Every little bit I've had after that has been a complete and utter bonus. So I went to 40 countries in my life. I had a 30-year career. I thought at first I just wanted a 20-year career once, and then I got another solid 10 full-time career for 30 years, which most people never get, you know. And then although I did everything I could ever want, I know I'm not competitive, so I was never chasing that, you know, which is not a good thing really. You need that competitive edge in this business. I was never chasing to be the man, which I know you've got to be, but I was quite happy just, you know, doing my stuff and whatever else. It was time to go, and like it was, you know, I'm not. That's why I think it's probably easy for me to be in the job I'm in, because I'm not like, oh, I could do better than these fellas. No, I know I couldn't do what these fellas do now.
That's how I feel.
They're far superior to me athletic-wise. I can teach them things detail-wise, and I can teach them things psychology-wise, and maybe add a bit more aggression to stuff. But as far as the ability that these fellas have, and ladies as well, it's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable, the quality of people now.
Hey, Steve, when you know, back when you were in WCW, you kind of made me think of this. You were one of the few guys that were on the list of Inoki's last opponents, and your match with him, the finish of that match, I'm pretty sure you were telling me that was legit, right? The chokeout. Yeah, well, that was the finish, and I knew he wanted, you know, I was going to tap. I wasn't going to tap, and I knew it would just be better if I didn't. I just thought this will be, and you know, I've been put out before. You know, it's not like, probably nowadays you know better, than it's probably not a smart thing to do. Right.
But I didn't at that time, and I knew it would be over really quick, and it was. He put it on, and I didn't tap, and I was out before I knew it. But yeah, I was very fortunate, you know, that he picked me for number 7 to be his on his final 10 countdown, because he liked that. I was the last of that sort of that British sort of style that was a big thing in Japan with Billy Robinson and people. That I was the only one around doing it at the time, so it was. I was very happy, you know, and it's at the end of the day, who at my age can say they fought somebody that fought Muhammad Ali?
I know, right? That's incredible.
That's so awesome. With your long career and how much you've done, has there been any talk about doing a documentary on you or a WWE Network special about your life and career?
Not really. They did like a thing a few years ago. It was like a 10-minute piece they still get shown, I think, on the network. Just there's one of me and one of Goldust, where they just show it when they need to fill some time in that. And they were showing it. I don't know if it still gets shown, but no, nobody's ever really brought that up at all. So, you know, I mean, I was just a bit player in the show. You know, I've never bought into. I was never a major thing. I was just a bit player in a show that stuck out because I did entertaining stuff. People sort of, you know, at the time, a lot of people don't know. You're just there, but like now, people seem to recognise more what I did than what I did when I was doing it.
Yeah.
Because they go back and they go, oh yeah, he was entertaining. That's the greatest compliment I get now, is people keep saying, God, I hated you when I was a kid. I didn't, you know, and I go, thanks, that was the whole point. You know, that was what I tried to do, you know.
Steve, how did you find the right balance between levity and seriousness in your matches? Because it's perfect. I mean, it ended up being perfect, really.
I honestly never thought about it. I just did what instinctually came to me. There's a lot of things that people, you know, I'm quite happy to, you know, I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm not good at. A lot of things I can just do and have instincts to do, but I couldn't tell you, you know, exactly when. Like I say, there's no formula to me.
Right.
Some people can give you some people can. They're very good at giving you a perfect formula about when to do stuff. I was never any good at putting matches together. I can just go out and wrestle. And if I'm on with somebody who knows, can do the same, but they've got more of an instinct of knowing when to do the right thing at the right time, because I never set a lot of stuff up. I just went out and just did my stuff. Then it worked good. If I wasn't, then it'd come off. It'd be okay, but it'd just be just there kind of thing. It'd be a match, right? I mean, but it was, you know, I'll admit I can't do finishes. I can't put layout. I marvel at people who can do that stuff. but I can add detail. Like
Yeah.
my thing is detail. Okay, well, if you just did that there, or just did that there when I'm helping people, or just, have you tried this? Have you, think about this for this camera shot here. Oh yeah, I never thought about that. Right, we'll just try that there. I can help people with a lot of that, but I was just a person who had somewhat of an instinct of what I could do and what I couldn't, knowing when to do it and when I couldn't do it, and hopefully it sort of, you end up like, I remember seeing an interview with Michael Caine. At the end of the day, he took any movie that was given to him.
Yep.
So he ended up, and at the end of the day, people just remember the good ones. So
you told me that
I've done an awful lot of rubbish, or not rubbish, but just their stuff. But then I've done a lot of things that stick out if you go back because of it being aggressive or comedic or whatever else. So it just a lot of instinct and luck, I suppose.
That Michael Caine anecdote I remember you telling me that many years ago. Actually, that stuck out in my mind. I've actually told other people that. Yeah.
Does anybody remember? They remember all the? Do they ever remember Jaws 4?
What?
If you talk about him, you always talk about the good films. You ever talk about Jaws 4?
Oh, Jaws 4.
One of the worst.
Oh yeah, no,
right.
yeah, not at all. No,
right.
for
right, exactly. And there's one he did. I don't know. I can't even know the name of it. But there's one. I think it's called Bullseye. Maybe him and Roger Moore. Possibly one of the worst movies ever made. But nobody remembers him, right? Because he's done enough good stuff, and so there's a somewhat myth about how good I am. But if you talk to people, because I could show you a lot of stuff that you wouldn't think that, and a lot of people, it's weird because a lot of people, the most people that ever watch wrestling would have been watching me on TV when I think was the worst part of my career as far as wrestling wise, which was the first couple of years I was on TV in WWE in 2000. Huh. They remember me for pulling faces, but if you just happened to catch the wrestling stuff, it was me when I felt like I was very robotic and plodding and not kicking into gear at the right times and stuff. So, some people have that view of me, so other people remember me for the wrestling. Most people remember me for pulling faces.
Regal, you've done some incredible stuff with NXT, as we know, but I want to know, what would you say are some of the pros and cons of NXT being seen as a third brand versus a developmental?
I don't look at it like any of that. I mean, I know other people do. It's just, we all work for the same company, and whatever I'm given, I just make it work.
Yeah.
That's just the way I am. It's not like we have a show and we make it work, and we do our best to make it work, and that's all I can do. I don't worry about it being, we try and do the best shows we can do, and anything you're given, that's my, anybody who talks to me, whatever it is, just make it work. Let's just make it work. You're given anything, let's make it work. So I never look at it like that. We all get paid by the same, from the same company, and we should all be trying to make it, whatever we give them, whatever part of it we're in, we should just be making it the best we can make it, and that's all it is. So I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you.
Oh, you guys held up as long as you could on letting Asuka go up to the quote-unquote main roster, huh?
Well, that's not me. That's not a call on me. Yeah, but yes.
Yeah, I just remember Paul say. I just remember Hunter saying, that was the one that he didn't want to let go if he could help it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's worked out great, because she's, it's just been fantastic for us at NXT.
This is the one time. This is the one time I thought they did that winning streak gimmick correctly.
It's been very, very well, right, and it's worked out great.
Because if you don't if you don't have like some skills to back it up, like once you lose that first match and that winning streak, you're done.
Yeah. Right, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, but I am at NXT TV as we speak, and I have got to go. I didn't realize it was the time that it is. We've been on for quite a while, right?
Yeah, thank you for giving us all your time.
I'm so happy that you came on, Steve. Please, I'm so happy, man. Like, our time is the most valuable commodity we have. and appreciate you giving us some of it, man.
Do I get to is this the time when you ask me if I want to plug anything?
I was just about to. Yeah, well, that's what my team actually does that. You have a show coming up, right? A live show in Sheffield.
Oh yeah. No, the only thing I want to plug really is I'm starting up a new business, and if anybody wants to invest in it, I'm opening up a factory that makes custom coat hangers for hunchbacks. So I think it's a niche market.
It is.
So if you want to get in on the ground floor, just get me on Twitter.
The hunchbacks in wrestling could never get beat, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, so do you have a website for your new business? Can you give us a website?
Just get me on Twitter. It's not gone that far yet.
Oh,
It's
okay.
at the ground stages. You know.
Right.
And I've also got some lovely jam that I've made that's for sale if you want that as well.
Okay.
That's about it really.
And we're not going to talk about the live show you have coming up, an audience with in England?
No.
Okay.
No.
Hey man, thank you so much, Steve. And
no, actually, I will give that a plug because Chris Brooker, who does it with me, is just probably, if he's listening to this, he's just probably fell over. It's on the 4th of November at the Sheffield City Hall. It's 3:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday. So I'd be lovely to see. It's the only one I'm doing this year in England because I haven't had any time, and we're just squeezing one in before we do TVs in Manchester that following week because I've got a tryout to do there. So that'll be it this year. It's the only one I'm doing, and it'd be lovely to see anybody that comes. There's always something interesting at those shows and plenty to talk about. So I love doing them.
Great, cool, man. Hey, I'll see you soon, right?
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, man. Have an awesome day.
Thank you, Mr. Regal.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Bye.
Amazing.
All right, man. Well, we're gonna that went fairly long.
Amazing.
And it just seemed like it was about half an hour.
Yeah, we could have kept going.
Yeah. We're gonna take a break right now, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about a few news stories, and then we're gonna end the show.